Aloha, everybody. Yes, we are live again right here to talk about relationships. This one's going to be great because this is one of the things that I think most people struggle with. I see you out there, Yolanda. I appreciate you showing up, first of all, for yourself. Jackie, same thing. All of you, I see you're all showing up now. I love this. I'm so blessed and grateful. There's a million things everybody could be doing today, but you chose to be here. So I am deeply grateful for each and every one of you. I don't take that for granted. I see you out there, Joni. I see the people just popping in. So I'm glad you got this last. I don't know if it was, I think I did mention that I'd be speaking, also doing another live with Adora. I'm loving this series that we're doing. Hello, Kelly. I see you out there. I'm going to bring her on in a minute because we are going to really get into, of course, we're doing this retreat on sacred relationships, but we're going to get really specific each and every week. And this one is about the fear of vulnerability, the problem that we have in our relationships. So I'm going to see if I can get her on. I'm sure she's out there. There she is.
Hi.
Welcome. Hello. Or aloha.
Thank you. Aloha.
Oh, my gosh. I'm so excited to have you here today and talking about specifically, of course, we're on sacred relationships, building healthy, more meaningful, deeper relationships. You're an expert and author in this field, in this space. And I know we're going to talk about this thing that everybody struggles with in their relationships, especially whether you're in one now or you're trying to find one, or if you just tapped out and you're like, okay, I'm done. It starts with the fear of vulnerability. It's one of these things that we don't really get aware of until we're in it. We're like, why am I not in a healthy, happy relationship? Or why can't I find that one? And we start looking in the mirror a little bit rather than going, oh my gosh, I'm meeting crazy people. I'm seeing this person, that person. They're just not working for me. And a lot of times, as I mentioned, we do need to look in the mirror and not outside of ourselves, but look within ourselves. And that's why I'm excited to talk with you today about, I think we're getting specific, right? We're going to get 3 steps. Right?
We are
on facing the fear of vulnerability.
Well, and I think this is so important because we all experience this, right? We have something that we need to say, right? We can feel it sometimes bubbling up to the surface. And especially for those of us that do not like to be in conflict or have challenges speaking up, right? And saying our truth, it's so important because it really shifts everything. When we can give voice to those places within us that are calling out for expression, it is liberating. It is freedom, right? But how do we do that in the moment? And I think, this first of this new series of sharing these practical, accessible, consumable tips for everyone is really important, because if there is too much to do, if it's like we could give a whole litany, right, of practices and principles for deepening authentic conversation and communication, but if they're not practical, if it's not something that we can like, oh yeah, I can bite into that and apply that right here right now, then what happens? We're like, oh, maybe I'll try that tomorrow.
And
then it's tomorrow, and then the next day, and the next day, and the next day. So I think it's really fun to be able to share, for each of us to share 3 tips for particularly this piece on vulnerability, and how can we turn our fear of speaking up and speaking out into a courageous but graceful expression of our truth, right? Because it doesn't have to come out forcefully. But often it does when we're quiet for too long, right?
Absolutely. It bubbles under the surface because you're holding those feelings in, you're holding them in, and all of a sudden this thing happens, a small thing, and we erupt. We're like, what was that? And you nailed 2 beautiful, beautiful words about how you can do this with grace and a real connection and the courage to be able to speak your truth. But I'm curious, and I want to pick your brain on this too, because it's so hard to initially identify for me. I know this is a problem that I've had. There's like, I don't even know what to say because I don't know how to articulate what I want to say, but it's just a bubbling of emotion and frustration and pain. and I don't even know how to get this out. It's a huge pain point for a lot of people out there. And I see some of you coming in going, yeah.
Yes.
But it is one of these things that, how do we do this? Now, I know, courage is acting in the face of fear, not pushing it away,
Yeah.
right? But I would love to hear your thoughts on, and certainly, solid tips on how do we
Sure.
develop the courage and share that with grace, so we are embracing our vulnerability, which is a beautiful human quality.
It is.
Right?
And it's so true, Shawn, because when we can be vulnerable, then we can really deepen that sense of intimate connection and communion. All right, so I'm going to break it into 3 simple steps. Simple is not always easy, right? But
Right.
the first one is get clear, right? Because we could get really activated. My partner hasn't done this, or they always do that. Or why are they like this? But if we can take a pause and get clear on what's under the surface, and sometimes that's asking, it's like the dialogue starts first on the inner plane, right? So
Yep.
so I have to ask myself, why am I getting so activated when he does this, or they do that, or she does this, and it makes me infuriated? But what's underneath that? Oh, because oftentimes it's really, well, I don't feel heard. I don't feel seen. I don't feel understood. I don't feel respected. And this is is an enormous one.
Yeah.
And then following the threads of that, because typically they are rooted in the past, some past experience where we felt that way before. And then when we don't speak up about how we feel, what happens? It gets compounded, compacted, and then until the point of eruption.
So true.
First, we got to talk to ourselves and really get clear on what it is that we're feeling and why. Where is it connected to in the past? And then when we're ready to talk to our partner, I always recommend starting the conversation with gratitude. Because the moment we start off with, well, you did this and I feel like that, what happens? The other person goes into defense. And then it's like a bouncing back of ping pong of who has done what for all of history.
Yeah, agreed. I'm one of those big proponents of, no I and you. And, it's when you start changing that language, whether I and you always, nothing is always, by the way.
Exactly.
Right? And rather than we and us. I love what you said there. I just wanted to kind of chime in on that, because if you're just conscious of the language of I and you, rather than, well, we, because we're in this together, we're coming up with a solution. I'm not here to berate you.
Exactly.
If that's my goal, right? Like, that intention, but I don't want to get too off on the weeds on that, because you're in a beautiful spot. But I love that, it's this identification of, it's not just I and you and where we get activated.
And so when we can start that conversation with gratitude, like I'm really so thankful that you're giving me the space right now to say this, because it's really hard for me. And I feel like I'm shaking, and I might be outwardly shaking, or at least I'm shaking on the inside. Because that's what, for those of us who aren't used to being vulnerable and being that open, it can be very taxing for the nervous system. Right? So to just acknowledge that and say to your partner, thank you for listening. This is hard, but I know that in the difficulty of me saying this and sharing this with you, it gives us the possibility to become even closer.
Oof.
And then after you thank them for their presence and their present listening and their kindness and their compassion, what does that do? That sets a very different level of conversation. Right? A very different energy between both of you. And then open your heart before you speak. To know that it's not about the other person. It's about something that is happening inside of you. And when you can open that dialogue from your heart and make those connections, whether it's something about your past that is the trigger, right?
Yep.
That is coming up to the surface, or in a way that you long to be more deeply heard and understood, and that you want to have that closeness, with your partner if there has been a lapse of that. And then that open-hearted dialogue, it's an invitation to your partner to also share about how they're feeling. And it creates a completely different paradigm. It's like we put the sword down, right? It's not about who is right, who is going to win. It's about coming together in a new space of communion and conversation and connection. And to me, the more that we do this, it takes practice, right? Is it different
Absolutely.
when it's on a professional level?
Absolutely.
Yolanda, do you mean if it's your client? Is that what you mean?
It's a good question. But I think because we're starting to identify whether it's personal or professional,
Mm-hmm.
right? You're already starting within. And as you said, you're creating a healthy space for even it's professional.
Yes.
Right? You're like, okay, great. I'm not here to, like I said, just tear you apart.
Yeah.
I'm coming in with gratitude and openness and love. And now you've created a space of communion and an opportunity to connect.
Yeah.
I think that is the greatest first step. And I'll agree with you on that because that is one of the first steps. I'm like, clarity, emotional, mental, spiritual. And of course, like you were saying, sometimes you're just shaking, and physical clarity.
Yes.
Right? Having an understanding of what triggers and activates you first before, as you said, just start opening your mouth. You're like, wait, what is happening here? And I call this, and I would, one of my first steps is, just do an audit. Do an emotional audit of your feelings, your thoughts. And in this particular case, if we're trying to identify our fears, okay, let me just be with that thought without judgment, without denial, because I grew up, and I'm in the Midwest, and especially a lot of these guys, like, you got to man up. Nobody wants to hear your problems. Nobody wants to hear it. And that's what we start to tell ourselves, as you were saying, the patterns of the past. Love my parents. I mean, it was, it helped me, of course, try to get clarity. I wasn't great at it, growing up, of course, but I understood now the value of not holding that in and like, well, wait, I want to share this. But like, no, you just fix it. You fix it on your own, and then you come talk to me, right? That kind of thing that I had to really work through in my communication. But I can't fix what I'm not aware of, or I can't articulate this if I'm not clear first within myself, what's triggering me. We can get into the second thing too, because I want to continue to do that. But I love where you're at, because it's one of these things that's a huge first step, is get emotional clarity about your thoughts that are triggering those feelings, those emotions, without judgment. Don't go, oh my God, I'm so this and he's so that, or she's so this. Wait, let me just audit it. This is a helpful thought. This is a hurtful thought. That's all you're doing. Just so you can just kind of step back and look at what are the possible triggers. It may feel overwhelming at first because there may be a lot, but that's okay, because you're coming in with a level of grace. I love
that. That's so beautiful, Shawn. What you said is like sifting our thoughts, right?
Yeah.
Sifting is such an important practice, especially when we combine it with discernment, right? To sift and say, is this going to be honoring? Is this articulation going to bring us closer together or further apart, right? And is it serving a loving, compassionate space that honors both of us?
Yeah, Jackie brought up a great point. The constructive feedback, having empathy more than just sympathy, and authenticity, of course, is so important. Yeah. But she said here, loving yourself. If you're not in love with yourself and you're, hating or disliking what's in there, and now you're going to have a conversation that you hope to connect, it's a really difficult place to start. Yeah. And that's where I sort of get into step 2, where I'm talking about now, okay, have a profound relationship with yourself. I have like a 3-step as a CPR, but I'll get it because we did clarity, and now having a profound relationship with yourself, because we all long for human connection. It's human nature. We want to connect. We want to be, as you said, heard, felt, loved, seen. But if we're not seeing ourselves, it's really difficult for someone to really see the authentic self in there if we're not really building a loving relationship. It's not easy. I'm not saying like, oh, I'm just going to love myself, though the affirmations of that are definitely helpful. But it is, for me, it is now, and like, okay, so I'm having this fear of being vulnerable. Like I had to back this up for myself. Like, why am I not communicating? Well, I'm scared. I'm scared. This is my childhood. I'm scared. I'm afraid to be open because I'm feeling like it's either going to hurt me or hurt someone else. I'm going to make a fool of myself. This is not going to come out right. It's just going to make it worse. I'm better just to behold it. It's better to just hold it within. So I thought, right? Because I don't even know what to do with this right now. And I was holding on to it for days and days and days. And it just, my partner's like, can we just talk? I'm like, yeah, but I don't know what I want to say because I don't have that healthy dynamic even with myself. So it is ultimately now having a profound understanding. And I do what I call is using a why ladder. Okay, why do I feel so frustrated? Okay, well, because I'm holding on to my feelings. Why am I holding on to my feelings? Well, because if I feel safer. Well, why do I feel safer? Well, because I'm not sharing with the world what's happening, so I can't get hurt. I got this protective shell on me. And I get that. We've all had relationships, and as you said, patterns in our life that have hurt us. A relationship in my 20s, and I'm like, my voice went up 3 octaves after we broke up. I'm like, what's happening to me? So I just closed up right after that. So now I have to break that. Why am I afraid to share? I'm afraid to be vulnerable. Why am I afraid to be vulnerable? And because I feel safe here. Well, why do I need to be safe? This is hurt. And I realized it's hurting me living in a shell. And I'm not connected.
Yeah, I love your why, because these why questions provide us with so much insight about ourselves and how the past, even in our mind, we can say, well, the past is the past. It doesn't affect me now. But any unresolved past experience, any unresolved past emotion is still projecting reality and experiences right here and right now. So I think that's such a powerful part of your sequence. I love that it's CPR too.
Yeah, the third one is release, but I would love to hear another great step that you could share with the people out there.
Well, I want to come back to this piece on self-love for a moment, because all of us, when we were young, there was something we didn't get from one or both of our parents or primary caregivers, right? This is the nature of life. And although it can be very painful to take some of those past experiences and deal with them from our present perspective as adults, it's incredibly powerful and empowering to realize that whatever we didn't get when we're young, we can hold ourselves in that space of love, of compassion, of acceptance, and care for ourselves in deeper ways now in this moment that completely allow us to have a much healthier, more harmonious, deeper relationship with our partner, right? And so we have to understand that in that, we can't get what we didn't get when we were younger from our partner today. We have to give that to ourselves first. And that's why the self-love piece is so profound, because it allows us to heal from those places of separation, of abandonment, of any place where we're still hurting, right? It's our responsibility now from this adult place to give ourselves that love and care. And then when we come into relationship with our partners, we do so from a much fuller place. It's never going to be perfect, right? Because that's part of the design of being in relationship and being with another who holds that mirror for us of ourselves in whatever way that mirror looks in the moments, right? Sometimes it's like, oh, it's so beautiful, feels so good. And some moments it's like, oh, this doesn't feel so great. And how can I shift my own understanding, my own journey, relationship within, to be able to see what's happening around me in a different way?
So true. I love that. And you really queued up something for me, that because we do get our cues a lot of times from music, movies, and the media about how this perfect relationship should be. Now, of course, I'm in the entertainment industry, so I understand how these scripts are calculated. Of course, it's a beautiful love story, and of course, there's a little bit of a challenge, and that everything works out perfectly in the end. And we have these expectations, and we put these expectations on our partners based on these beautiful songs that are written to help us connect with what love could be and to make. And then we compare that to our partner. I love country music, and I hear some of these beautiful songs, and you can see, I'm like, wow. I mean, literally, this happened the other night with Ari and I, and this beautiful song came on. I mean, we were literally up till 4 or 5:30 in the morning, just connecting, talking. It was so amazing. And we're in tears about some of these beautiful songs and the love that we shared and the journey we've been on and the heartache and the challenges that we've had and we've overcome. But I want to caution people out there, don't set those expectations that you see in music or that you see in movies or in the media and advertising, even on social media. Like, oh my God, couples on the beach in Saint-Tropez, and how come you don't take me to Saint-Tropez, right? And your partner's like, wait, what? We got a bills. I got a leak in my roof. That's actually what I'm dealing with now. But but do you see how we set ourselves up and we put our partner in that situation with these expectations, but we're not even holding ourselves to your beautiful word, that this accountable with self-love. We don't need to have a perfect relationship. We don't need to keep up with the Joneses. We don't need to compare ourselves to people on social media or this beautiful movie that is amazing. And I love movies. It takes us to this magical place. It's aspirational. We aim for that. I'm all about it, right? Same with music. It makes us feel alive. That I love. I'm all contributing to that 100%. But we also need a reality and an understanding of our own, as you said, past expectations, that we have sort of watched the dynamics of our parents, and those are our cues, and we're looking for what we lacked and from our parental relationships, and we're looking for that in the other person, and we haven't healed, as you said, that relationship yet. So it goes back to the sense of self-love and healing. What am I looking for? I can't be this loving, kind, gracious, empathetic person if I'm not even practicing habitually doing that with myself day in and day out. We need to actually work on the habits of doing that. That's part of the profound, as I like to call the relationship, the P. But in this third part, and I want to cue this up for you as well, but I call it releasing, right? We've done inner work, we've gotten clarity, we're building a healthier relationship with ourselves. How do I release this and articulate this? This is the scary part for everyone. This is where I'm actually have to be vulnerable. Yeah. And I'm encouraging everybody to, of course, the root of vulnerability is the fear. And I encourage people, both in the courses and what we'll be talking about at the Sacred Relationship retreat and the retreats that we've got going on this year, is I want you to go, no. People push fear away. It's uncomfortable. Of course, we don't really want to have a relationship with it, because we'd rather do this with distraction or Netflix or alcohol or drugs or whatever those other things that we find ourselves habitually going to, or our phones, rather than being vulnerable. Happens all the time. You'll see this on an elevator. People, where you typically would look someone in the eye and go, "Oh, if you're having a good day," or "Hello." Everybody goes, and nobody's connected with it because it's vulnerable. Like, "Hey, how are you? How's your day going?" Like, that just rarely happens now. So I'm encouraging you now to be able to bring fear in. Go, no, come here. You can name it. Mr. Fear, Alice, Bob, I don't care what you call it, but I want you to go, fear is my friend. I want a healthy relationship with fear. I want to know you. What makes fear scary is the unknown. So what are people most afraid of? The unknown. Well, make the unknown known by bringing it into your heart, bringing it into your sphere, and go, sit down, fear. Let's talk.
I love
what are you afraid of? Yeah, I mean, I've had to do this both on screen and off screen, because I do have to be vulnerable. If I have to do this crazy crying scene or whatever's happening, I'm like, it was the hardest for me, because I have to go to a place that I'm not comfortable in, and then go on screen and be vulnerable. I'm not afraid of screwing up or making a fool of myself. That part doesn't bother me at all. But the having to share that emotional feeling is hard. But now I do it because I know the value in it. So that's what I want to share with you, is people release that. But go ahead. Yeah.
I love what you just said about being with the fear, because there is information in the fear. The fear can be a teacher if we allow it to have a voice. And if we can listen with courage, the courage to make it our ally, and then the further courage to take action through the places where it isn't always comfortable. And sometimes when we have that feeling, that emotion rising to the surface, that we know we need to allow it a voice. Sometimes emotion comes with that, and it's okay, right? In those moments in my partner and with clients, I say, you know what? Let the tears come, because they are paving a path of liberation. They are freeing the emotion and the fear that you have present, giving it a voice, giving it a sound. And then even if you don't know exactly what to say or what you want to say, it will come through the release. Sometimes we just have to take that first step. Yolanda, you asked about some of the meditations and affirmations for releasing the fear. This is a wonderful question, and absolutely you can take a look at the soulinstitute.co. There's an alchemy library with a host of meditations there that you can access for free, as well as on the Adora Winquist YouTube channel. But one of the affirmations that I love for working through this is that I am not my fear, right? I am courageous, and I speak my truth with authenticity, grace, and courage. Because we want to invite both to be present, right? Both the courage and the grace. And that way, what we need to say can come out in a balanced way. Does that make sense?
I love that. That meditation is beautiful. And please go there. If you're struggling with having some vulnerability and a deeper connection with yourself, she's got amazing meditations. Meditation is just simply being with yourself. People go, oh, I can't meditate. I tried to do this for the first time. It was a whole day meditation on a mountainside in Hawaii, and you think it'd be the best thing ever. But to go inward was so hard. And so to listen to meditations that you've created and to meditate for yourself, is you're really taking time. It's that sense of self-love to go, I just want to be with me. And your guidance, if you're having a hard time and you're hearing the noise, which you will, you'll hear the noise, you'll hear everything, but you're simply being present with you. And the habit of the practice of being present with you will allow you to be more present with others. So if you're uncomfortable with yourself, these meditation is a great way to go, I just want to give myself a moment of grace, a moment of kindness, moment of love. And you'll hear the chatter, you're not enough, you're not this, and you remind yourself, these are some great sparks that will help you create the meditative process. So I think that's a great resource that you've made for people. I love this.
Thank you.
I know we could go on.
We could go
and
on for hours.
But we will be doing this every week. So just so everybody knows out there, and if you have questions, reach out, DM either one of us this week, and we will try to address them. I will try and address them, even in a week if we can help you through with that. And certainly come to our sacred retreat that we have this January 28th in Southern California. But you can get all that information at the soulinstitute.co. So
perfect.
I would love to leave you with the final thoughts. You really, really set up some wonderful things that people can do to sort of face the vulnerability and the willingness to just be vulnerable. And I want to just sort of say this too, just be cautious about, or be aware, maybe not cautious is not a great word, but be aware of who you're sharing your vulnerability with. So, right, not everybody needs to hear everything. And that's how we get hurt, right? And we're just like, well, I'm going to just share on social media that I'm going through this medical crisis, or I'm having this experience and my boyfriend broke up with me. We're like, wait, they haven't earned your vulnerability yet. You have to allow people to earn that vulnerability. And there's, it may be a handful of people, or maybe even one at this moment, or maybe none at this moment. But when you're ready and you've created that vulnerable relationship with yourself, now you're willing to give it to somebody else, and you can be more aware who's earned that in your life. And then it can grow and expand, but there's layers of vulnerability that you can share with people.
I love that, Shawn. That is discernment. It is one of the most powerful life skills. And it takes a lifetime often to be able to learn, but it is so powerful. The other thing I want to leave you all with is take a few deep breaths, right? When you get activated and you feel like, oh my gosh, I need to say this out loud. I'm feeling this, and I know it relates to the past in this way, and I don't know what to do with this. Take a few deep breaths from your lower belly, right? There's a Dantian point that's about 1.5 inches below your navel, and this is your energetic core. This is the part of the body in martial arts that we know as the power point. But breathe into this part. Let yourself breathe deeply, because it is when we are breathing in a shallow manner that the anxiety increases and heightens. So you really want to bring a sense of calm and tranquility to yourself through just a few simple deep breaths, because that really changes everything and your entire perspective in the moment. It's a wonderful tool of empowerment.
That's beautiful. I think that's the greatest place to end, because it is one of those beautiful, simple things to just, well, what can I do in the moment? And it is, you're right, because the shallow ones is where we get in this panic mode, and we're not really taking that really deep breath. And you can even put your hand on your stomach at that lower part of the navel, and you feel your stomach push out. That's where you're getting it from. And really, and slow, deep, and just continue to, I do that every morning to set myself really, and I'll either go om, or I'll just release this very slow with stillness, and I'll repeat these words: calm, ease, balance, peace, but really slow as I breathe. So it's one of those things. I love that. That's beautiful. I appreciate you. I think you're giving so much valuable information. I learned something there, and we talk, of course.
Likewise,
so
dear.
So grateful to you being here. I love the wisdom and the deep knowledge, and I'm glad that people are really getting value and going deeper within themselves and in their relationships.
Well, blessings, and we invite you all to join us in January at that event or any of the future events, and we look forward to seeing you in person. So happy New Year, and we'll see you next week.
You got it. Mahalo.
Enjoy. Thank you, Yolanda. Blessings, dear heart. Ciao.
Bye-bye.